Welcome to the final planning committee meeting of the year. I can see the devastation on your faces. Before we begin, as you know, there's been some committee changes, so we need to appoint a vice chair. So Councillor Davis has been approached, so if everyone's in agreement, all those in favour? Abstentions? Against? There's always one. Right, that's approved. Councillor Davis, if you'd like to take your seat here. Secondly, is there any apologies tonight?
Yes, Chair. Apologies received from Councillors Harkness, Gaffer and Holbin.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest from members? No. Yep.
Sorry, can I just ask a question about the Civic Centre car park? We don't all have to declare an interest on that, do we, by any chance, being councillors? No?
No.
No?
No.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, any public questions?
None received, Chair.
Minutes of the previous meeting, can I ask them to be noted? Agreed? Yep. That's fine. Okay, which takes us on to the next item 6, which is land at Abbotsford Road on Cromford Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, as you say, this is an application. It's in the Durker area of the town, just to the east of the tram stop, effectively. So it relates to 4 separate sites. I'll just give a brief description of those and show you some pictures of those sites, and to redevelop them in total for 132 residential units. So first of all, this is just to give you an aerial view of the sites themselves. So in effect, the kind of L-shaped central section you can see in green that goes off to the top right and then extends roughly top to bottom of the site. So those are 3 of the sites themselves. And then in the bottom left corner is the site just off Cromford Street opposite the Park and Ride tram stop, and that's the 4th site, which is slightly different to the other 3. So these again are just to show you the relationship between the sites themselves. Just some house types now, so effectively 4 different types of house that we're just showing here. So there's a couple there and a couple more. So obviously you see these are basically 2-storey properties, appropriate scale really to the existing properties in the surrounding area. So it's the first of the site, the one that we call in Abbotsford Road being the street that runs through the middle of the site. And effectively, as you can see, it's 2 long rows, and these are quite narrow rows, and that's dictated by the fact that the site was previously occupied by more traditional old terraced houses. So in designing a development on the site, the applicants had to take that into consideration so that we make sure that there's adequate amenity space retained, particularly where the relationships with existing properties, and that's been attained on the layout. And these are just giving you a street scene views of that. So as you can see, the sites themselves long since cleared and some natural vegetation has established on there, and there are some small groups of trees, but largely the site, as I say, is just sort of grassland that has grown over. These are showing some of the alleyways, so that each of the main sides of this, so obviously these would previously served the backs of those properties. On the one on the left at Oldham Avenue, there is a proposal to reduce the length of that, but that's not where it adjoins onto existing residential properties. But in general, on these sites and on the other sites that I'll show you, the intention is that those will be retained. So this is the development itself, and probably the properties on the kind of southern side of this give you the clear indication of how the applicants designed them so that they are elongated. That gives you more garden area at the back of the sites, and also obviously ensures that adequate separation distances are achieved. Other than that, as I say, all the properties, all designed to meet the national space standards, all of them provided with 2 car parking spaces on the site, obviously some shared areas in a couple of the groups here, and a mix really of predominantly semi-detached houses. This is giving you a street scene, which is again is obviously what you might have expected to see from the previous images. So that's the Abbotsford Street site. The second one is named Evelyn Street. It's actually contiguous with the next one for London Road, and again you can see you can work out what the original housing development on this site would have been like with the fairly narrow plots. So obviously the applicant has had the same issue and has looked to design a scheme on that basis. Again, very similar, the outlook, this is how the sites have been left in the meantime. And again, the layout, as you can see, it's been designed in a way that ensures that there's plenty of private garden space. It means the properties are close to the frontage of the site, but to some extent that's how the terraced houses would have been originally, so it's having a reflection of that in the design. London Road, just immediately to the northwest of that site, again very, very similar arrangement, and again pictures similar to the previous images, and again the layout being designed to ensure that it provides adequate amenity space and privacy space in relation obviously to both the existing and the proposed dwellings. The final site is Cromford Street. This is different from that site. This was previously in industrial use, albeit for a long period of time that has lain vacant, and as a result there had been plenty of natural vegetation that had grown on there, which you can see obviously from the aerial image. The site has now been cleared. This was done primarily when the applicant was looking to start development and to ensure it could be done before the bird breeding season took place. And as you can see on there from the hard standings areas on the site, that's the industrial legacy that was on there. The other main factors on this site, as you can see at the top, these are properties on Acre Lane. They're much higher than the site with a retaining structure at the back of the site. So the proposals to develop it effectively have a row of properties on the right hand side, which is the Cromford Street frontage, then an area at the back of those with another row, and then the existing houses at the top of the site. But all the new properties obviously will be below the level of the existing ones. These are just giving you the relationships that are not to the residential. So the first one is showing you the relationship with the park and ride, and clearly as that indicates, the actual tram stop is very, very close to this location. The second one, this is the southern side of the site where there are some existing industrial units, and the site was within that industrial allocation, and as you'll see in the report, we've concluded that it is now better suited, given its location, to housing, but it's only a small part of the much wider industrial allocation. And this is the site plan, so as I described, so on the left hand side, this Cromford Street frontage, you'll see these are existing properties put on there. Because they're close to the site frontage, shared parking areas will be provided off the new access road into the site, and then that serves the second row of properties, which you can see on the right hand side, each there with its own individual parking spaces and served by private driveways. So there's only one vehicular access, because it might look on there that you may be able to get off these private driveways. You can't. It's all through the same access point. So in conclusion, effectively these are all vacant sites at the moment, a legacy at least on 3 of them of housing development. This proposal will provide a mix of housing, 132 properties in a very sustainable location. It is recommended for approval on the basis of the conditions in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for the officer from members? Nope. Then we'll move on to the speaker. I believe we have the applicant. Would the applicant wish to speak? Yeah. So basically, you'll have 3 minutes, and the clerk will tell you 30 seconds prior. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, not wanting to preempt the decision by the committee, I just wanted to thank the council for allowing us the opportunity to develop the site, which we believe has got the potential to be an exemplar scheme in terms of low energy, carbon neutral housing delivery, and it will set the standard for new homes for the future, not just in Oldham but in the wider GM borough. That's basically all I've got to say about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Yeah, Councillor Cosgrove.
It's just a query. I went to the resident consultation, and I know one of the issues that one of the residents brought up was about drainage behind the Evelyn Road, between Evelyn and Stoneleigh. Do you have any things you'll do with that drainage issue that's there? It's the back-ins.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I wasn't aware of any drainage issue at the back of Evelyn Street, but all our design takes into account existing surface water runoff, and the outfall from our site is designed to Greenfield standards. It's regulated and attenuated before it goes into the system, so if anything, if there is a problem there now, I think the introduction of our developments will improve matters rather than worsen them.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, Councillor Gloucester.
Thank you. Can I just ask, when you're talking about carbon neutral and sustainable properties, can you just explain exactly what is going in that wouldn't go in a usual build, please? A full list. Thank you.
Yes, this is effectively a gas-free scheme. There won't be any gas boilers in it. The 10-year split is 2/3 private for open market sale houses and 1/3 affordable housing for social provision. The social houses will be to full carbon neutral standard, using air source heat pumps, photovoltaic roof panels, and the private plots will be to a low carbon standard, which is only just behind the carbon neutral standard. So in terms of sustainability, it's a huge step forward compared to comparable housing developments in the borough.
Yeah, Councillor Gloucester. Yeah.
So what exactly will be the difference then? So I want, you know where I'm going, don't you, I think?
Yeah, running costs will be far, far lower than a conventional house that operates on a gas boiler. Yeah, there'll be no gas bills, you'll have a minimal electricity bill, and it works on the principles of ambient heating. So rather than turning your central heating on in the morning, ramping it up, having it on for a couple of hours, turning it off, putting it on again in the evening, it's an ambient system where it runs at a constant temperature, and the air source heat pump draws heat from the outside environment and converts it in the property, and basically recycles the heat that's generated in the property.
So will there be charging points, etc., for cars?
Yeah, every house will have an EV charging point. So I'm not sure it'll be carbon neutral if you plug your Tesla in, but it's. Yeah, hopefully the scheme will be future-proofed for the next 20, 30 years in terms of emerging technology.
Thank you. Councillor Iqbal.
So according to the design, has every house got a tree outside? Just want to clarify that, and if so...
I can't swear, I can't promise there's 132 trees there, but I'm pretty sure every house has got at least one tree, yeah. That's generally the rule. There's some shrub planting and a sapling applied to each tree, applied to each plot.
What kind of trees would you be planting? Because I'm all about fruit trees.
I don't know. I'd have to check the landscape layout on that. Probably a birch, I would imagine. Something. I doubt it'll have pears or apples on it, but it definitely won't be a conifer, I can assure you that. So.
Councillor Iqbal, we'll make sure that you're there when the planting takes place. Any further questions for the applicant? Thank you, Mr. Milner. So we have no objectors, but we'll go straight to the ward councillor. Councillor Charters. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Serjan. I'm obviously, first of all, I'm here as ward councillor, very supportive of plans to put more housing on brownfield sites in Durka. We need more housing, and there's nowhere better to put it than somewhere where there was already houses. But some residents have come to me with some issues, not necessarily they're opposed to the plans, but just some concerns that they have that they'd like addressing. First is around sort of construction traffic routes and times of works. So I know we've had, God, this is really loud. We've had some developments in the past where the works have been quite disruptive to residents in and around the area, both with noise, parking, and with the road surface being left in a poor condition. We've had that in my ward as well, so it's something that people are quite worried about. Another thing I think is around the traffic calming that will be coming in as part of the scheme. Making sure that there is some traffic calming. A 20-mile-an-hour zone is something that people have been asking for, and accident reduction measures, especially around the London Road, Yates Street sort of junction, where there has been incidents in that area before, and obviously with an increase in housing there, it's something that people are quite concerned about in terms of volume. And then finally is some work around community safety. So as we all know, crime and antisocial behaviour has only gone up over the last 14 years thanks to government cuts, and especially with regards to changes in shift patterns and cuts to PCSOs, there's not as much visible presence. So there's been a number of community safety led schemes in Durka that have really helped reassure residents, including lighting, accessing alleyways, bike barriers and gates and such. And we're just wanting to raise those issues with the committee and make sure that these things are addressed as part of this development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Do any members have any questions for Councillor Charters? Councillor Cosgrove.
As you know, I'm ward councillor as well. I have had possibly the same residents, and I think behind the Evelyn Street section, there is a ginnel where a lady a few years ago got stabbed, and I agree, I think it would be good to have some kind of barriers or extra lighting, because at the moment it's just a rat run with off-road bikes and electric bikes. So I think that could be, if we could put that into the plans, it would be great.
So we're just in the section of asking Councillor Charters questions. If
Oh
you've
yeah,
got a question,
sorry, I was just saying.
If it helps, Councillor Surgeon, I agree with everything that Andrew just said.
Thank you. Any further questions for Councillor Charters? Oh, thank you. We'll open up the floor for discussions then, or members' questions for the officers. Councillor Bashworth.
There we go. I said we've been waiting for these derelict areas to be developed for ages, and people have been really upset that it hasn't, but I think this is probably the best we could ever get. It's an absolutely belting scheme, this, particularly with all the photovoltaic cells and the heat pumps. The design, they've really got the best out of a very limited space, and they're the right homes in the right place. Hopefully the right people will move in and enjoy living there. I think it's a great scheme, and I'd move approval.
Councillor Davis.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to second approval. I mean, this is a kind of, as Councillor Bashworth said, this is a kind of development we want: brownfield land, heat pumps, EV chargers. This is the future, and congratulations to the builders for bringing this forward. And I definitely would love to second it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Davis. Before we move to a vote, Councillor Cosgrove has indicated she'd like to ask a question. Yep.
Well, it's just to ask if it's possible to actually put something in the development around the community safety-wise, because I know that it's a very high incident on Durka at the moment, like the Ginnells, and I am concerned that the police haven't made comment, which does concern me, because I think if they'd gone to the neighbourhood team, they could have given evidence of what's actually going on in the area.
Yep, I'll bring the officers on this. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's quite difficult, because if we could think that we'll impose a condition that says that, but you can only impose a condition to do things that are within the applicant's control to be able to do, and generally the issues are going to take place on land they don't have any control over. But obviously it's something we can take forward in terms of the highway issues where where some of these passageways are adopted. Sorry.
I think the land I'm talking about is the backings of Evelyn Street, and ran the side of Evelyn Street. Currently at the moment, because I know when they're living in the area, it's like a rat run up and down the backings. So I just wondered, for the new residents moving in, it might be beneficial for alley gates or...
If I can come in, Chair.
Yep.
It comes back to what Graham's saying. Ultimately, you can see there, or you can't see on that plan, I've got a slightly different plan, but the red line boundary is obviously around the green areas. So the ginnel you're referring to, if I understood it rightly, is not in the red line boundary. So we can't require the developer to put measures in that ginnel unless they are needed because of the new development. But the problem is, obviously, the matter you're describing is not created by the new development. But
Can we look at the Abbotsford Road one then?
It's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, I think ultimately, in terms of what you're concerned about, it's probably those ginnels are adopted, aren't they, Wendy?
I'd have to check it.
We'll have to check.
Let me just explain which one it is. At the bottom, in nearly every garage on that bottom section has been broken into recently.
I don't dispute those issues. It's the fact that the development isn't causing them or won't cause them, and it's not the developer's job to fix those issues.
I'm just thinking of the new residents moving in. If we already know there's a problem there, if something could be done to stop that problem happening in the future, then...
And I think the point I'm making is that through the planning process, we can't necessarily require that. But obviously, if the ginnels are adopted highway, it's something obviously you can explore with our highways colleagues.
Right, okay.
Any further questions for the officers? Right, it's been formally moved and seconded, so we'll move to a vote. So all those in favour of the development? That's unanimous. That passes. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes item 6, and I hope you do take into consideration some of the concerns raised by members. Right, moving on to item number 7, which is the temporary theatre structure at the Civic Centre car park.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just bear with me, I'll just get the slides up. Okay, so yes, this is item number 7, and this is an application from the Oldham Coliseum Theatre Limited for a temporary theatre structure and all works associated with that to be erected on the part of the Oldham Civic Centre car park, which is the section immediately in front of the front elevation of the Queen Elizabeth Hall, and flanked by the bus station behind and the Civic Centre tower alongside. So this is the application site, you can see edged in red on the plan on the screen. The proposal is a temporary proposal for up to 3 months, which would run from, assuming it is approved, would run from April until at some point in July. The site is owned by the council, which is the trigger for it being brought to committee for determination. So in summary, what the actual proposal is for, we'll come back to the photos in a moment. So this is a proposed site plan that shows the actual structure, which is a temporary hemispherical dome structure, which would provide for 167 people, to give an idea of scale. So it would be 15 metres in diameter and 8 metres high. And the associated development you can see on that plan include a refuse storage area, which would comprise a recycling bin, general waste storage, and secure storage as well, which would be in a container. To the other corner of the site, the northernmost corner I think it is, there's what's called a wind monitoring station. So that would, the name suggests, monitor the wind speed, and in events where there is a high wind speed, as part of the safety plan in place from the operator, it may well have to be close to the public in those events. But that would include a 10 metre high pole with the associated equipment on the top of that. These are the elevations showing the structure, and then just for a little bit of context, these are photos taken from the applicant's planning statement that just show where this structure has been located elsewhere and what it kind of looks like. So that's the proposal in itself. So the site photos here, I'm sure you're familiar with these, but it's the car park you can see in the foreground of that photograph. And again, from just different angles here, but that's a photo that shows the wider context of that site. In terms of the main issues, obviously, we have to consider the amenity considerations, somewhat the design issues, although it is obviously a temporary structure. The property in the background is the former Oldham County Court, which has been converted into residential properties, so they are the nearest residential uses. In terms of the amenity considerations, they include making sure there's adequate facilities for the visitors to the site. So there are toilet facilities provided in the QE Hall, Queen Elizabeth Hall, and as part of, obviously it's a car park and there will be vehicular movements associated with the use, as well as a lot of pedestrians. So in consultation with Wendy, the highway engineer, the applicant has provided what we've called a pedestrian management plan, and that just explains how the site will operate safely to avoid any conflict between vehicular movements and pedestrians, and that is referred to on the late list. You'll see in the original report there was a condition on there requiring the submission of a pedestrian management plan, but essentially we've had that received and Wendy's considered it and it's considered to be acceptable, so there is a suggestion of a substitute condition for pedestrian safety. And then the associated works that are involved with this site will include matters such as enclosure of the site with 1.9 metre high Harris fencing, which would have a black mesh attached to it to provide some security and privacy. And in short, that's the nature of the proposals. So it is recommended for approval subject to the conditions set out in the report. There are some obviously negative impacts associated with the development, which would primarily include the temporary loss of the I think it's 35 parking spaces, and that will include two spaces with EV chargers, and there's 2 disabled parking spaces as well. And I think that's it in terms of a general introduction, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the officers? Councillor Cosgrove.
It's just a question for Wendy. Where are we going to replace the disabled bays?
So I'll just go through where the other disabled blue badge holder spaces are in the town centre. Do you just want me to go very local, or do you want, and I'll do a figure at the end if that's all right with you?
I've actually not long ago done a full assessment of all the disabled bays, so I know where they are, but are we creating another 2?
No.
No?
No.
Oh.
But in the consideration of this application, we've looked at the numbers that are available close by, and for the temporary period.
Are they fully accessible, or are they like the Tommyfield pub?
Well, they are at the Tommyfield. Do you just want me to quickly run through them? There's a bit of a list.
I know where they are. My issue is these ones we're losing are fully accessible. So if you're in your wheelchair, you can take the wheelchair outside of the car. The ones at the Tommyfield, you can't. You have to leave somebody in the middle of the road. So that's my concern, that we're not replacing with fully accessible bays, which are in situ now. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Obviously, all I've done is look at the provision town centre wide and then assess those against the loss of 2 for 3 months. 3 months.
Have you took into consider how many are fully accessible and how many aren't?
No.
Yeah, that's my only issue,
Yeah.
but it is for a period of 3 months. Yeah. On the market, the next nearest ones, we've lost the ones on near the church. There's not many unless you go indoors.
I'll bring Officer Peters into this.
Officer Peter now.
Not that kind of officer.
I mean, I think you've hinted at it yourself. I mean, the bottom line here is obviously it is a temporary period, so we're acknowledging there is an impact, absolutely, in the wider scheme with the benefits that this for a temporary period will bring. We have to balance it, and it's always, in planning it's always about that balance, and it doesn't say there's not going to be harm or not going to be impact, but we have taken account of it.
Any further questions? Right, I open it up for debate then, if anyone wants to debate this. No discussion on it. Councillor Bashworth?
Yeah, it's just another interesting scheme, isn't it? It's a really interesting opportunity for the Coliseum. I hope it's a resounding success and we see more of these things popping up all over the place. It looks really good. Thanks. And again, I'll propose approval.
Yeah. And second that, okay, that's fine. So we'll move straight to a vote. All those in favour? Abstention? Oh, that's unanimous. Right. Thank you very much. Just lastly, can we note the appeals update? So, Councillor Davis. Yep.
Yeah, it's just quite interesting there. We've got one on the 5G mast, which has been allowed. So was it refused in the first place? Obviously it was refused and they've appealed it and it's been allowed, is that obviously?
Page 31. TEL 3501.
Yeah, so,
9522.
yeah, so in
Yeah.
answer, yes, it would have been refused at the time, and it's been allowed by the committee, so essentially that's been granted by the planning inspectorate.
Right, okay.
Any further questions on the updates appeal? No. Can they be noted then? Yep. Okay, and that concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you everybody for your input tonight. I'd like to just put on record thanks to the officers for the hard work over the year. We've had some good times, we've had some bad times. I mean, long planning meetings is what I meant. And all the best in the upcoming elections to all members, and hopefully we'll see each other in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you very much.